Delivering the Courier's Rasher is one of my favorite little side missions in Hollow Knight Silksong. So fortunately for all of us, I have left that mission uncompleted in my current playthrough so that I can show it all with you, my dear viewers, today. Now, it is a very difficult process, especially if you're just playing Hollow Knight Silksong your first time, because unlike the other deliveries in this game, the Courier's Rasher has a time limit to it. All deliverables in Silksong break upon getting hit a certain amount of times, and don't get me wrong, the Rasher breaks when it gets hit. It breaks even if you bump into things, but more than that, even if you don't get hit, it breaks if you just take too long to deliver it. And in a standard playthrough, it's probably the most difficult delivery item because you're not fully used to the format of the world, you're not aware of the lay of the land, all the enemy spawns, and it can break very quickly, especially if you do it in Act 3. If you do it in Act 3, you also have access to the Silk Sword, and that can make it break just by hitting the ceiling or falling from too far. But after you play the game for as long as I have, you start to learn where the enemies are, where the best locations are to run to get to the coral chambers and deliver it is. So it becomes almost an easy challenge after enough practice, as practice tends to do. So I was thinking one day, what is a way I could make this challenge harder? Now, I've already made this challenge harder before. I delivered it all the way to Grandmother Silk without it breaking, and that was a really fun video to make. But even that seems like something I could do somewhat easily now after having practiced it for so long. But you know what's something you can never practice? Your reflex time. Because everyone plays this game at standard movement speed, and I happen to have the ability here with cheats to change the in-game speed. I can change it to 200%, or I can modify it below. As you can see, 200%, just the button pressed, but I can also change it to anything below that, 1.2 times game speed, 120%. Barely noticeable once you get it up to that set. And really, most minor changes to game speed aren't crazy noticeable. 2 times speed is noticeable, as is obviously 1.2 times speed, but it's not untenable. I could deliver the Courier's Rasher at 200% movement speed, but what happens when you get to something like 10 times the movement speed? 10 or 1000% movement speed. This is where you begin to see the breakdown of human reaction time. If you probably had a task, it could probably handle this level of movement speed and the amount of inputs needed to jump and double jump at this movement level. But when you're not a computer, I'm pretty sure it's fully impossible to deliver the Courier's Rasher. In fact, let me just try it. Let me just see how it is trying to deliver this bustle of meat when it's this fast. Yep, it's already breaking. I don't know if I can jump up here very easily, and it's gone. That's it. It's all over. The meat is gone. We've lost. Move on, everybody. Yes, so I do not know if a human can deliver the Courier's Rasher at 1000% movement speed. And despite the title of this video only naming 300% movement speed, I didn't want to make this just a one-time challenge. What I wanted to do today, dear viewer, is I wanted to start at trying to deliver the Courier's Rasher at a more reasonable game speed. I wanted to start at 150%, and every time I was able to successfully deliver the Rasher, I would move it up by another 50%. So 150 to 200 to 250, all the way up for as long as I possibly could. And I wanted to see what my upper limit was. And I was very pleased with how well I did, and it was a fantastic challenge. It was so entertaining to do, and I know it's going to be entertaining to watch for all of you. Please enjoy the experience of a man whose movement abilities break down before his own eyes. Now, before I showcase the full 150% speed run, I wanted to show part of the reason why I thought it'd be possible to do this run at high speeds. A patch was recently added to Hollow Knight Silksong, which allows you to silk soar between rooms. I thought I could use that to go all the way up to the top of the blasted steps, but as you can see, you can't really do that from this one spot right here. It just leads you to a ceiling in the room above. That's what I thought at first anyway. But there is a trick when it comes to this one cage and this one little chain link. When you go on the left side of that cage, it brings you right up to that ceiling above you. You break part of your Courier's Rasher, everyone's sad. But if you do the Silksong from the right side of this cage, you go all the way through the center. And if you've seen my video on the new Silksong, that Silksong up through the center of the room above us will take us all the way to the top of the blasted steps with 0 platforming that we have to do. This skips a major portion of the platforming that would have been incredibly annoying trying to do so at very high in-game speeds. And once I realized that this new mechanic could massively improve our ability to deliver meat, that's part of the reason I started this video in the first place, because as it turns out, it is one of the best advancements in Rasher delivering technology Farloom has ever seen. And for anyone who does those crazy challenge runs where they deliver the Courier's Rashers quickly, this new patch for the Silksong is genuinely a boon. I think this is the fastest path by far now, because you can Silksong all the way up to the blasted steps and you don't have to waste time going through all the platforming before it, as long as you get the launch point correct. If you launch from the right here, boom, one room, this entire long room, all the platforming gone. Just make sure to cancel it before you hit the top, because remember, Silksong is dangerous. It can take away part of your Rasher's life. I did die one time before this, but in total amount of attempts to deliver the Courier's Rasher at 150% game speed, it took 3. It was very easy. And it's kind of insane to me how easy it was. Like, it's 50% more speed. It's not insignificant, but I guess when you are used to delivering the Rasher enough, you just have enough time, even with that 50% speed. And 50% speed is helpful, I think. A lot of these higher speeds are really unhelpful, because every second you're not moving perfectly, you're just wasting time. But when you're at 150% speed, you still have a ton of control over your movement, and it really just felt like doing the normal Rasher route, but slightly quicker, and that made it easy. These last rooms in the Citadel are really where the make or break comes in all of the future runs. In this run, like I said, it's pretty business as usual, but in future runs, when you're moving so fast that you can't control yourself all that well, and you get to these rooms with a lot of enemies and not really good ways to avoid them, that becomes the time when the entire run breaks down. For this run, I was going so fast and avoiding everything so much that I could just take a 2-mask hit there to the face and be perfectly fine. Like I said, after you've done the Rasher run enough on just normal game speed, it starts to feel like almost an easy challenge. It's not an easy challenge, but you know, practice is worth something, and I'm happy for that. That's the whole reason I could even do some of the crazier parts of this challenge. So yeah, the whole 150% game speed, pretty much a cakewalk, especially with that new Silksong. But the second you get up to anything much higher than that, like 200 game speed, you start to see the problems with the speed at which Hornet moves and the speed at which enemies move all around her. When enemies start moving at double their normal speed, you notice that when you try to set up your cool trick to save a ton of time, you instead get hit by voided enemies and non-voided enemies who may take away all of your Rasher's HP, but that's not, you don't gotta worry about enemies, you gotta worry about yourself. Because when you go at 200% speed, you go into an elevator and you contemplate your existence, and then you realize maybe you're not that good at video games. And then when you leave that elevator, you go back to the cool Silksong area and lose to the enemies again. And maybe you think, I shouldn't be making challenge run videos at all. I should be working at McDonald's, especially considering I can't even get it off when they are not even close to me. But you know, none of that matters at the end of the day. What matters is that you fail over and over again until you get to the one run where you don't fail. And that one run is all that matters, and it's all that will be posted to your YouTube channel. So you know, at some point in time, you will get to the Silksong area. You will get up there without getting hit more than once. You can get hit once, it's okay, everybody makes mistakes. And once you get that Silksong off, that's it. This is the only hard part of the entire run, and you will get to the top of the Citadel with basically all of your Rasher left because you didn't get hit anywhere else, because nowhere else on this run is a problem. And you will make it to Mergwyn with a Rasher that is not expired, and that's all that matters. Mergwin, we have one morsel of meat to serve to your master, and you accept that, so I'm saying mission success, and we can move on to 250% game speed and forget that we ever did 200% game speed, because no one needs to think about the elevators or the enemies. Well, now that I've gotten to 250% movement speed, I think I'm really getting into the range where control is not really under control anymore. So I can still double jump okay. I don't think I'll ever be getting the full height out of my double jumps because I'm acting too slow and I don't know exactly when to jump the second time to maximize the height I get. But fortunately we have stuff like Silksong and the craws getting us the money, and really when we've got that on our side, we don't need much else. So this is my first run, and I think it's a good showcase of how massive a difference it is between runs, because when you go from 200% to 250% movement speed, everything just feels weird. You no longer have the muscle memory that got you to your goal last time, and you have to relearn everything. Now, for the 150% and 200% movement speeds, that was a very quick adjustment to make, because it was still relatively slow. Like, obviously it's faster than base speed. 250% is when I started to realize this is getting fast. I can't really dodge enemies nearly as well anymore. I made the jokes about the enemies blocking my Silksong spot, but in the coral chambers, this is really where not being able to dodge enemies is a problem. I have a ton of the Rasher left. I think I got here without getting hit once, and the second I enter the Citadel, it all falls apart, because enemies can snipe you with their void shots, or just do anything else to block your path, and you just lose everything the second you get hit. But one thing that's good about going at 250% movement speed is that every run is fast. And because every run is fast, I finally feel okay showing off a full run to Mergwin. Because, you know, you're getting hit at a much faster speed than if everything was at boring normal game speed. By the way, when I recorded the intro for this video, it was after I had done everything else in this video, so I felt like I was moving through jello, like through molasses at that point. By the way, I also changed the setup a bit here. I gave myself Threadstorm and Volt Filament to kill those enemies that had caused so many problems in the Silksong area. And it was a good idea. It was one-shotting them and two-shotting them when they're voided. And other than that, I was in my flow state for this run, because this is the run that succeeded at 250% speed. When you are going this fast, some of the actions you take almost feel like second nature. It's like hand-eye coordination or testing your reflexes. You build up a muscle that can go involuntarily, but can still help you, because when you go to, well, you don't want to do stuff like that. When you go fast enough and you have to make decisions way faster than this game expects you to, sometimes you just have to rely on your subconscious, and sometimes your subconscious delivers because you've been playing this video game for 6 months plus of your life, and despite not being a very useful skill, it is a skill you have honed. And, you know, outside of those skills, the only things that you can really focus on are the path that you're taking to get to Mergwin. And I had thought I had the perfect path found out. I still changed it a bit more in the future, but for now, this was a good enough path to get me there with the Courier's Rasher intact, and a lot of mistakes made for sure. I could have got here with much more of a Rasher. And at this point I thought, you know, if I could get here with no mistakes made, maybe I could get up to like 500% movement speed and still be doing this successfully. And that was a massive overstatement of my abilities. But hey, before going into that, we now have 300% movement speed. Another big jump. Do you know what controlling Hornet at 3 times her movement speed looks like, dear viewer? Oh, and if you thought that last one was a close call, dear viewer, that was before I got this wonderful run at 3 times speed, which I lost, because I was going too fast to speak to Mergwyn before the Rasher exploded in front of his eyes. I was very close to killing Mergwyn that time. Unfortunately for me, I didn't succeed, which meant I had to continue with this process. Fortunately for me, getting that close pretty much told me that I was doing something right, and that eventually I would succeed. It's unfortunate for me that I felt that way, because I probably spent around 2 hours getting this run down at 3 times speed, but I did get it down, and that you can no longer call the YouTube title a thumbnail, or it's not a thumbnail, the YouTube title some kind of exaggeration, or clickbait, that's what it is. I forgot the term for about 10 whole seconds. You see, while I had pretty much the entire run figured out before this point, I realized once I was going at 3 times speed that the path I was taking through the Citadel was going to be basically impossible to do consistently at this speed. When you have a room with around 8 enemies in it, it's really just not going to be feasible that none of them are going to hit you, especially when any of them could randomly become voided and start to attack you with ranged attacks that they don't normally have access to. So I figured out that there is another path to go in the Coral Chambers, the path right past the Ventrica station labeled Coral Chambers. If you go to the left here, you face far fewer enemies, and even better, you get to go through the spa to get to Mergwyn. You just have to be able to do that one dash between those 2 enemies there, and you're essentially home free. I feel like it's a bit longer in terms of actual walkable distance, but to avoid enemies, that is far more important to me when I'm going at this uncontrollable speed than just more speed. I don't want more speed. I want to deliver the Courier's Rasher, and I managed to do so at 3 times movement speed, which was a great feat for me, in my opinion. And because I succeeded here, it meant I had to continue to 3.5 times speed. And you know what's insane about 3.5 times movement speed? What's the deal with 350% movement speed in Hollow Knight Silksong? It's more than 300%, but it feels like it's less. I think the real answer is it doesn't feel like it's less. I spent 2 hours getting 300% down pat, and much like the movement from 100% to 150, once I got 300% down pat, 350% felt like it barely changed. And now that I had my new format, where I was avoiding most of the enemies in the Citadel, it really just felt like I had everything figured out. And the entire footage I have for all attempts at 350% movement speed is 20 minutes long, compared to 2 hours on the last one. 250% actually took 1 hour, so this is one of the fastest wins I was able to get, and it's the fastest speed I had gotten to so far. And I was riding high at this point. I was looking at 350% being this easy. I was taking hits, and I still felt confident that I could succeed. I was genuinely in like a flow state here. I could not tell you, based on this footage, how this all felt so easy to me when I was doing it. It's really just like when you add weights very slowly, and before you know it, you're lifting hundreds of pounds more than you ever thought was physically possible. It's crazy, this kind of resistance training, how well it works sometimes, because this run got it in 20 minutes, and then I was ready to move on to 400% movement speed. And I had gone in to that point with very high hopes that would very soon be dashed very cruelly. I had gotten too comfortable in how well I had performed in the early parts of my runs. When it came to getting 350% speed down, I just had to focus on the Citadel. But I realized once I got to 4 times speed that all the platforming before the Citadel was going to be my new enemy. I was able to eventually find a way up the blasted steps, but you saw how much repositioning and time that took. I pretty much ran out of all of my Rasher from small hits and just from jumping around not going anywhere. Now more than ever, I was actually running out of time by just not being able to jump up properly. And I realized that part of that was a positioning problem. because trying to position on these tiny crates was impossible when I moved so much with even a tiny movement. So I saw another place that I could get this huge Blasted Step Silksong up with. And yet, once I got up here, what did I find? I found that the platforming wasted a lot of time. The Rasher really wasn't hurt that much by enemies in this run so far, and yet it was already far lower than it was in any other run, even the 350% runs, just because I was standing around for too long and making jumps, or rather not making jumps that I'm supposed to. And because of that, even though I wasn't doing anything that much specifically worse, a lot of tiny mistakes came together to ruin this run, and this is a good example of how all the runs turned out. And at one point, this happened. And I think when that happens to you, after 3 hours of trying to get a run down, going 4 times the normal speed of the game, that's when you just have to say, maybe this is not meant to be, you know? Maybe this is where I decide that I've hit my peak. And it was a peak that I was very proud of. I was able to deliver the Courier's Rasher up to 350% movement speed. 4 times movement speed, I certainly believe is possible. I just did not want to devote the next 5 to 6 hours of my life to getting a run doing so. I could in the future, and here's the deal. To everyone who is still watching at this point, if you get this video to 5,000 likes, not only will I do the Courier's Rasher delivery at 4 times speed, I will do it at 5 times speed. 500%. That is my promise to you. I don't know if it's possible. 4 times movement speed barely seems possible, but it is. So I can't give up on what lies ahead. And at this point, you probably have been looking at this footage now, and I don't know if it's the same for you as it was for me, dear viewer, but I was looking at this footage like it was completely normal. Like I said, when you ramp it up slowly, you barely notice the changes. And if it was the same for you, I'd be very interested in hearing you say so in the comments, because this is kind of a social experiment in some ways. But one of my favorite things I found out about all of this is that the Pelbeast will do all of her actions at a much higher rate just because the movement speed is going. Most of the sounds aren't sped up, but if you want to turn your movement speed to 10 times the game speed, or what do I have, 20? You'll get a lot more interactions with Era and all of her children. And I don't know, I think maybe this is one of the best applications you can use for super speed in any video game. To have your pet zoom around more than they ever would before. But my record as of this video is 350% movement speed. I was able to deliver a Courier's Rasher in a world going more than 3 times as fast as any normal human has ever experienced. And I can take pride in that. If you want me to do more, I guess hit that like button. Have a good day, everyone. I hope you enjoyed watching this nonsense, this train wreck.